Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Connolly, and I am a member of our education team here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And today we have a very special program for you because we're going to be going on a virtual whale watch and see what we can find out at sea today. Before we get into that, I have to mention a few things. First of all, I'm not alone in the studio today. I have my friend Alicia behind the camera who's controlling all of the magic we'll see. She's also the captain of our boat today, so you might hear me mentioning Captain Alicia helping us to find some amazing animals out on the sea. Now, the other thing that Captain Alicia is doing today is monitoring our text line. So, actually, during our program, we're going to invite you to explore with us, to be scientists together. We need your eyeballs to help us spot some of the things we might see while we're out on our watch as well. So, we have a phone number that you can text to send any of those questions into. So if you're watching this live at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, July 3rd, you can text us on that top number, which is 562-286-1838. Now, if you're watching this at a later time when we're not live, we still would love to hear from you. We just ask that you maybe shoot us an email instead at that live@lbaop.org email address. So, like I mentioned, today we're going to be going on a whale watch. And before we head out to the boat and start heading out to the sea and see what we can see today, we have to talk a little bit about how we can find things, what we're going to see today, and how we even need to prepare for it. So let's think for a second first. If you were going to go on a whale watch, we're all going to get on a boat and go out on this boat together and try and find some whales out in the ocean. What do you think are some tools that you might need while you're out there? If you do go on a whale watch, you'll see oftentimes there will be a naturalist on board. A naturalist is a kind of scientist that kind of helps you to learn about the natural world around you. So today I'm your naturalist on the boat. I'm going to help us learn about some of the whales we might see today that Captain Alicia might find for us. And while we're out on that boat, what do you think are some things we might need to help us? You can see I've already got my jacket on because it can get pretty windy on the boat, right? We're kind of out. We might be kind of flying really fast to try and find a whale or keep up with a pod of dolphins or something. So layers are always a good idea when we're out on a boat. What else do you think you might need? Yeah, definitely. Maybe some eye protection, some sunglasses. I don't have mine with me today, but you can maybe put on your imaginary sunglasses because the glare off the water can be pretty bright. So it can kind of help us to be able to see things a little better while we're outside on the boat if we have some sunglasses on. Another thing that might be helpful is maybe some binoculars. So if you want to get your binoculars out like this, sometimes the things we're looking for are kind of off in the distance. And if we have a tool like binoculars that can help us see things that are really far away, they look kind of bigger to our eyes, it can help us to spot things. We might have to have our binoculars ready and kind of keep scanning throughout our program to see if we spot anything while we're out at sea. And maybe a hat, some sunscreen, right? It can be pretty hot out there. It can be very sunny. We're going to be outside, right, exposed to the elements. So, want to make sure we're nice and protected from that. And also some snacks, right? It's nice to, when you're out on the boat, you might be out for a few hours at a time. It's nice to have some snacks with you to keep your energy up. My favorite boat snack is some fruit snacks to help kind of keep my energy going while we're out looking for all these amazing creatures. So once we've got all of those things, we're ready to head out on our boat. And I mentioned earlier that I'm going to need all the eyeballs I can to help us find things. Because think about while we're on the boat, maybe I'm looking this way. But maybe if Captain Alicia's looking this way, she might see something over there. We gotta use all of our eyeballs together, kind of scan the whole area of the boat, 360 degrees, and see, because anywhere could pop up a whale or some kind of animal that we want to look for, right? Now, when we're trying to spot a whale, there are a few things we can use to help us. A few things we want to keep our eyeballs out for. You can help me look for these things to see if we can find some of those creatures. Now, the first one is going to be lots of splashing in the water, kind of like some waves. So, when you're out in the ocean, there's usually some smaller kind of waves that might be going. We're looking for lots of splashing all happening. It's not regular the way the smaller waves might be. And that's going to be a sign that there might be some dolphins or some smaller things happening at the surface of the water. We'll see lots of activity. So if you see any splashing, make sure you let us know that so we can kind of take a closer look and see what's going on over there. That's a good sign there might be something over there. Another thing we want to look for is actually birds. Now, you might be wondering, why are we looking for birds when this is a program all about finding whales? And whales aren't birds, right? No, they're mammals. Well, birds are also an indicator that there might be some other animals kind of hanging out below the surface. a lot of birds spend a lot of their life or maybe their whole life out at sea, and they're going to be eating similar animals to our whales, maybe like some small fish or other little invertebrates, things like that. So if we see lots of birds all gathering, that's a sign there's probably a lot of food in the area, and maybe under the surface of the water, there might be some big whales hanging out there also feeding on that same food source. So birds can help us to kind of keep an eye out for there might be some other activity there. Now, the third thing we want to look for is what we call a blow. So I mentioned that the animals we're looking for today, our whale friends, are mammals, right? Just like you and me as humans, or if you have a pet at home like a dog or a cat, those are mammals too. And one of the things that all of these animals have in common, or the same, is that they breathe air, right? We can all practice together. Let's take a deep breath in and out like that. Now we just breathed that air, that oxygen into our lungs, and then we released it back out. Now our whales have to do the same thing. Even though they're living in the ocean, they can dive really deep down and hold their breath for a long time, longer than we definitely can as humans. They eventually still have to come back up and take a breath, just like we all did together. And when they come back up to the surface of the ocean and they take that breath, they will exhale and it will kind of cause a big blow like this of some water that's kind of sitting on the top of their noses. So their noses are kind of in a weird place. Maybe let's see if we can have any picture of a blowhole of a whale here. We can kind of see how they might breathe a little different from us. Oh, perfect. So here we have a gray whale. Maybe we'll see one of those on our watch today. But their nose is actually on the top of their head. So think about if you're an animal living in the ocean and you're swimming, it might be a nice adaptation, a nice thing to help you survive if your nose is actually on the top of your head, right? Think about if you've ever been swimming and you're face down like this. When you want to take a breath, what do you have to do? You have to kind of turn your head this way, right, to breathe. But our whales have this really cool adaptation where they just kind of pop the top of their head up right here and take a breath. And since they have these blowholes, you'll notice they're kind of indented or like a bowl shape. So when they kind of dive down, there might be some water that gathers in that little bowl shape. And when they come back up to the surface to breathe, they have to exhale first, right? Just like we did before they can take another breath to hold as they dive back down. So when they exhale, they're kind of pushing all that water off of their blowhole. And the air that's inside their body is very warm, right? Another thing that mammals all have in common is we're warm blooded. So if you touch your skin, you'll feel it should be nice and warm, hopefully, right? Our body stays at a really nice warm temperature. We regulate our own internal body temperature. So that warm air from inside the whale, when they blow it out into the cold air and there's that water, it kind of creates like a cloud of mist or steam that you can see, and that's what we call the blow. So if we see these big clouds of water or mist that are coming out of the ocean, we definitely know that's a sign that there is a whale right there. So those are the things we want to keep in mind when we're heading out today. We want to look for lots of splashing. We want to look for some birds that might be hanging out, and then definitely for some blow. If you see any blow in the area, please let us know because that's a really good sign we got maybe a really big whale hanging out down there. All right, so do you have all your things you need for our whale watch? Are you ready in your brain to look out for those 3 things that will help us find some whales? All right, I think we're ready to head out to sea. So here we go. Captain Alicia has taken us out of the harbor. Now in Long Beach, we have to kind of leave the harbor first. So if you ever come on a whale watch with us at the Aquarium of the Pacific, we kind of have to slowly leave the harbor. And then once we get out of the harbor, we get into what we call the open ocean, right? There's more area out there. That's where we're going to find those whales. So as we head out into that deeper water where we might find our whales living a little further off of our coastline, we got to start looking out for any of those signs of whale activity, any splashing or birds or any blow. Does anyone see anything? Let us know if you see something. Oh, I've noticed some splashing. Oh my gosh. Check this out. I'm going to step off so we can enjoy this. What do we see here? Who's splashing around in these waters? Yeah, those are some dolphins, right? So just like I mentioned, where the splashing might be a sign that we can see some dolphins, we have a bunch of dolphins here together all swimming. Now, when we have a group of dolphins like this, we actually call them a pod. So here we have a pod of common dolphins. Now, common dolphins are like their name suggests, a common dolphin that we can find here off of our coast in Southern California. Now, remember I mentioned earlier, as a naturalist, right, I can help you kind of learn about these things that we're seeing. So when I'm out there on the boat as the naturalist, something that I might look for to help me figure out what kind of dolphin it is their coloring. Because there's actually several different types of species of dolphins, right? So we can see we got Captain Alicia found a perfect picture here. She took this one so we can see it. It's jumping out of the water. We call that porpoising. We can get a closer look here at this dolphin. Now, what colors are you seeing on this one? Yeah, I'm noticing there's some gray up at the top here, kind of darker. And then the side of it is kind of lighter here. You might even say white, right? Now, this is a Pacific white-side dolphin because they're found in the Pacific and they have a white side. Sometimes names of animals are not very creative, and the scientists that come up with them, they just are a description of what the animal looks like, right? So here is our Pacific white-side dolphin. Now, when we're looking at this dolphin, and remember we talked about those blowholes of the whales. Do you think that you can see the blowhole on this dolphin? Let me give you a second. Try and find where this dolphin is breathing out of. Because I'm noticing something that looks a little different from the one that we saw earlier. Do you think you see it? Oh, I think Captain Alicia has another view of it. Oh, here we have two of our common dolphins jumping out of the water. Remember how I said we can use that color to help us figure out what they are? So our common dolphins instead have kind of a light gray on their back, kind of a cream in the middle, and then like a white belly down here. So as they were jumping out of the water, I could tell that these were common dolphins because I could see that kind of white on their sides there that helped me to know that those were the common dolphins. We can also use their size to help us, right? So these ones are only about 6 to 8 feet, but there might be some larger dolphins like bottlenose that are bigger, and we can just tell just by looking off the boat. If they seem like a bigger dolphin, then it's a different type of dolphin, a different species. So our blowhole on our dolphin is indeed this little hole right on the top of their head over there. Now, when we were looking at the one earlier, it kind of had like 2 holes. But how many does this one have here? Yeah, I just see one, right? So the blowhole of the dolphin is just kind of one opening right on the top of its head, just like that. Now, the blowhole of the dolphin actually tells us about the inside of its mouth. So if we see a whale, because a dolphin is a type of whale, if we see a whale that has one blowhole just like this, that tells us that the mouth of the dolphin has teeth in it, just like us. Now, their teeth might look a little different. Let's see if we can head over maybe to my document camera. We can look at an example here. Perfect. Let me zoom out a little bit. Alrighty, so if I turn this to the side, we can see all of these teeth inside the mouth of the dolphin. Now, are you seeing, what kind of teeth are you seeing? What do they look like? What shapes are you seeing? Yeah, they're kind of triangle shaped or maybe a little bit rounded, but mostly kind of pointy on the end, right? Kind of like what we might think of as our canine teeth are kind of pointy. Do you see any like flat teeth that help them maybe to grind up any food like molars? No, I don't see any teeth like that, right? So our dolphins only have those pointy teeth in their mouth. And the cool thing about looking at just the mouth or the teeth of an animal is it can actually tell us a lot about what they might like to eat. So, our dolphins here with these kind of smaller but pointy teeth, they like to eat some small fish or squid or things like that. And they're going to use those teeth just to kind of grab it and then swallow it, right? Because they don't have any teeth to help them grind it up like we do with our back molars. So, they're using them to grab that food and then just kind of swallow it. So, our whales that have one blowhole, are going to have teeth in their mouth, just like this. Well, here's another picture of some bottlenose dolphins. I mentioned earlier that these are the bigger species. You can kind of tell that they look a little bigger than our common dolphins do. Now we can see they also have that one blowhole just on the top of their head. Perfect. All right, I think let's head back out to sea. We're going to swim away. We can say goodbye to our dolphin friends for now. Thanks for visiting us and teaching us all about the things that you have. Now let's see what else we can find. So let's start looking again. Maybe I'll get my binoculars out. I'll look super far in the distance and see if we can find anything that might be hanging out. Oh, I think Captain Alicia spotted something. She's taking us up to, what is this? Oh, I just saw something happen that I told us to look out for. Did you see that whale blow? Let's watch it again. So it's going to come up to the surface of the water. And if we look at the top of the whale right there, we saw that water shooting out as it took a breath of air. So we have just spotted a gray whale. Now, gray whales are a really, really cool kind of whale. And the first thing I want to talk about, since we are just talking about teeth, is how these whales are different than our whales like dolphins. So if our dolphins have teeth inside of their mouth, then what does a whale like this have in its mouth? Have you ever heard before about what they might have? Have you ever seen it? We have a hint here. Here's a better picture of our gray whale kind of opening its mouth. What do you see going on in there? Does that look like the teeth of our dolphin? No, it looks really different. Well, the teeth of a whale like this, like our gray whale, is actually what we call baleen. And our baleen is these big plates that you can see in the mouth of the whale. And it means that they're eating in a very different way than our dolphin was. So a whale that has baleen in its mouth is doing something called filter feeding. So let's all become whales that have baleen in their mouths together. So let's get our really big mouth ready, just like our gray whale here. And then as we're swimming along, we're going to take a really big gulp of water. Can you take a really big gulp of water with me? And in that gulp of water, there's lots of little creatures, like krill, little shrimp, things like that, maybe little fish that are trapped in your mouth. And then you can use your really big tongue to push that water out of your mouth. And guess what? The baleen is going to trap all of those little creatures in your mouth. You can kind of think of it like a pasta strainer, right? So once you make the pasta and it's sitting in that water, you can use something that will catch the pasta but let the water through so that you can hold on to that. The same thing's happening here with our baleen whales. But instead of catching pasta, they're catching all those little fish and creatures that they find delicious to eat. So if we look over at my document camera, I actually have a sample of baleen here to show you, so we can kind of look at what it might look like. So in that picture we were seeing of the gray whale, we were looking at the outside of their mouth here, which we could see this edge of the plates. Now, we call each of these little kind of flat parts of baleen a plate, so we're seeing all these different plates here. And if we look at the other side, we can see that it looks almost like a broom, right? This is the side that's going to be doing all of that filtering. So as I take a big gulp of water and push it out, this is going to catch all of those little creatures in it. And then once they are caught in the baleen, the whale will once again use that really big tongue to scrape all of the food off and swallow it to have a nice meal. And the baleen of the whale is actually made of something that we also have on our body. Can you take a guess? What do you think you might have on your body that's kind of similar to this? Does this look like anything we might have? Similar texture or feeling? It's kind of hard, but not super thick. Yeah, this is made of keratin. And on our body, we have keratin in our fingernail. So you can notice that this side of it kind of looks like a fingernail. And then this side of the baleen kind of looks like hair. Our hair is also made out of keratin. So we can see those similarities, right, in the whale and ourselves. Pretty cool. Now, when we were looking at that gray whale that was blowing, we could see that they had those two blowholes, right? So instead of the dolphin that just had the one little hole right on the top of its head, our gray whale has kind of like two, they almost look like nostrils, just like us. Like if you took this part of your nose and just stuck it on the top of your head, you would get what a gray whale's blowhole looks like. So them having two blowholes on the top of their head tells us in their mouth they have that baleen. So if we're out on a whale watch and we're seeing an animal and we can see its blowhole, we can actually figure out whether it's a baleen whale or a toothed whale just by looking at the top of their head. That's pretty cool, huh? All right, now what else do you notice about our gray whale in this picture? So it's definitely gray, right? Hence its name. But I'm noticing some other kind of colors on it. Some other things that maybe look like they're just creatures growing on the whale. What could those things be? Do you have a guess? Oh, here's a really great picture of a gray whale covered in these things. Yeah, there's actually two things kind of living on the whale here. So the first thing is barnacles. If you've ever gone to a tide pool or the beach, or you've been to like a dock or the bottom of a boat, you've probably seen a different type of barnacle, right? But they're little creatures that like to stick on this stuff. And then they do the same thing that the baleen whale does, where they filter feed. So they're also sitting there kind of catching some water and getting little tiny creatures that are floating through the water like plankton. And then the other thing that are on our gray whales here are called sea lice. Now, when we hear lice as humans, we're like, oh no, it seems kind of scary, right? It's a bad thing for humans to have. But for our whales, it's actually kind of helpful. And they're a different kind of lice than we get as humans. Now, our sea lice are kind of like some little creatures that live on our whale. And they actually help the whale by cleaning it. You can kind of go on its skin. They're kind of eating by kind of picking at some little dead bits of the skin, and they actually help keep our gray whale nice and healthy. So if you see any baleen whale, but gray whales in particular, you'll probably see these other animals also living on it. Now, our gray whales can sometimes have hundreds of pounds of barnacles and sea lice that are just stuck to their body as they're moving through the ocean. Now, think about if you're a barnacle, why it might be a good choice to live on a whale. Because our sea lice is eating the skin, right? So they're there. But why would a barnacle want to hitch a ride on a whale? Well, if we remember, we talked about how they eat by filter feeding. And our gray whales are also pretty slow moving whales. They're not like our dolphins that we saw jumping super fast out of the water. If you're a barnacle, it might be a little hard to kind of hold on to a whale that's just jumping out of the water all crazy, right? But our slow moving gray whales are a good spot to kind of hang out for the barnacle. And they're always moving. Our gray whales travel about 12,000 miles during their migration from the northern part of the west coast all the way down to the Baja area for breeding and having their babies. So there's lots of movement happening that these barnacles are a part of. So there's always some new water flowing and some food for them. So it's actually a great place to be a barnacle because you can kind of hang out. There's always some new food that's flowing through. You're not moving too fast. It seems like a pretty great life if you ask me. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about that migration. It's a really cool thing that our gray whales do. So, gray whales during the summer, they live up near Alaska, like in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, like I mentioned. And they're up there and they're eating, right? Our gray whales like to eat things that kind of hang out in the mud, and those actually rely on things that need the sun to make their energy, right? Like little plants and things like that. So during the summer, when there's lots of sun, and even sometimes the whole day is sunny when you get really far north in Alaska, there's all of these things growing, and it's a great place to find food. So our gray whales hang out there and they just eat and eat and eat, and they have to beef up to get ready for this really long migration. Then, as it gets to kind of the autumn time, right, like September, October, our whales begin this 12,000-mile round trip journey, and they start south all the way down the coast of North America, the western coast of North America. Along the way, they stop by us here in Long Beach, right? So in about January, February, we start seeing the southbound gray whales. And like I mentioned, they're heading down to the Baja area of Mexico, where the waters are really nice and warm and also pretty calm in these lagoons. And they'll go in those lagoons to have their babies and to breed. So they travel once south to go down there, and then they will come back down and go all the way back up to Alaska to eat once again during the summer. We can actually see these whales during our gray whale season. Like I mentioned, it kind of starts in about January or February where we see them going south. And then they turn around and we see them coming back up north, and they'll hang out in Alaska until it's time to start their journey all over again. It's pretty cool that we can see these gray whales pretty reliably during that time of year because they're on this huge journey to go have their babies. Now, one other thing I want to share with you about our gray whales, just because I think it's kind of cute, is that if we were really far away from gray whales and we just saw a blow off in the distance, we actually can tell what kind of whale it is sometimes based on the shape. So our gray whales, because of the angle and the shape of their blowholes, their blow comes out of the water like that. It makes like a little heart shape So if you're ever out on a boat and you see a little heart shape of blow out in the distance, you know that's one of our friends, the gray whales, that's hanging out below the surface there. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the feeding of the gray whale, because I mentioned that that's what they're doing the whole summer while they're up there in Alaska. And our gray whales like to eat a little bit differently than maybe like our humpbacks or our blue whales that are out in the open ocean, kind of grabbing those big mouthfuls of water. Now, did you notice in this video kind of some brown stuff coming out with the gray whale here? Let's see. Let's look at that again. So it took a breath, and then all this stuff was coming out of its mouth. So I mentioned they kind of like to dig around in the sand or the mud to find, we call them amphipods. They're like these little tiny crustacean-like creatures that are hanging out down there. And instead of just taking a big gulp of water, they're kind of putting their face in there and kind of digging up whatever they can find and then grabbing a big mouthful. So they'll get all this kind of mud and sand in that mouthful of water. And that's why we can see here when they're pushing that out, all of that comes out along with it. And just like us, where we are sometimes right-handed or left-handed, our gray whales also have a preference of whether they like to go down with the right side of their face or the left side of their face. And we can actually tell by looking at their rostrum, which is kind of like the front of their face here, because their nose isn't here, right? It's on the top of their head, so we call it their rostrum. We can tell by the scarring on it, because you can imagine if you take your head down and you're kind of shoving it in the dirt like this to get some food up, it might give you some scratches. So whether the scratches are more on the right or the left side of their body will tell us which side they prefer to use to eat. And just like with humans, it's about 80% prefer to do the right side, and then about 20% the left side. So if you're right-handed, you're just like most of our gray whales who prefer to use the right side to help them eat. All right, let's head back out into the ocean. And then I think we actually have to start heading into port. But we might see on our journey back to come in to the harbor, we might see one more animal if we're lucky. Let's see, let's look around and see if we're spotting anything. Do you see anything jumping out of the water or any splashing or blow? Maybe get your binoculars out. Let's see. I think Captain Alicia found a picture of something. Let's see. Ooh, what could this be right here? Yeah. These are indeed some orcas or killer whales, right? So these are the largest of our dolphin species. In that first picture, we could kind of see they also had one blowhole on the top of their head, which tells us they are dolphins. They have teeth inside of their mouth. Here's a good view of all of those blowholes that just have that one opening. Now, this is a really special treat for us to see because unlike the gray whales that have a very regular migration where they come through Southern California, orcas are kind of a rare sight. We don't have any that regularly migrate like the gray whales or a resident pod like the common dolphins, or we can always see them somewhere on our coast here. So if you're ever out on a whale watch and you see an orca, that's a super, super special treat. Now, orcas are the largest of the dolphin species. We can definitely see. Look how big this whale is jumping out of the water here. And I actually have an orca tooth here. I'll just show you on my hand for scale the size of this. Oh, here we go. Here's a picture of it in their mouth, right? So remember, the other dolphin tooth was about maybe this big. Look at the orca tooth compared to that, right? So these are definitely eating some bigger fish. A lot of them like to actually eat mammals as well, so things like seals or sea lions or smaller dolphins. But this was a really special treat that we got to see some orcas. We usually only see them about 2 or 3 times per year during our whale watches here in Long Beach. So I'm so glad we got to spot them together today. And you'll have to go home and tell everyone that you got to see an orca on your whale watch. I know when it happens here, everyone in the office is super jealous, and we're all so excited that there were orcas spotted in Long Beach. All right, so we have now headed back and made it safely back to the harbor. We can all get off the boat together. We can, shed our layers. It's a little warmer back out here. And that's going to bring us to the end of our program today. So I want to say thank you so much for joining me. If you have any other questions or things like that, you're always free to send them to our email live@lbaop.org. We always love hearing from you, any of your questions or thoughts or observations that you want to share. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining.